Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we are looking at some surprising developments that connect both South Africa and Zimbabwe in a very interesting way. South African activist Dabula has reportedly urged Zimbabweans to embrace the Dudula movement as a way of challenging their ruling party, Zanu-PF. This is quite a bold statement that has already sparked discussions and debates, not only about politics in Zimbabwe but also about how movements in one country can influence people in another. Please make sure you watch till the end so you can hear the sources of this news and try to verify it for yourself. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, take a moment to do so and stay up to date with the latest news we bring you. Now, Operation Dudula is not new to South Africans. The movement has become well known for its campaigns against undocumented foreign nationals, particularly in the areas of jobs, housing, and access to services. Some people support them, saying they stand up for South Africans who feel abandoned by the state, while others strongly criticize the group, calling their actions xenophobic and dangerous. With such a divided reputation, it is surprising to hear that Dabula has encouraged Zimbabweans to see Dudula as an example of how ordinary people can rise up and demand accountability from those in power. His message was clear. He said Zimbabweans should not sit quietly while the ruling party continues to hold on to power despite years of criticism about corruption, economic collapse, and human rights violations. Instead, he argued that they should take lessons from Dudula's confrontational style and use people power to put pressure on Zanu-PF. He believes that if Zimbabweans were to adopt the same fearless spirit, they might be able to break the cycle of poor leadership and demand meaningful change. Of course, this is easier said than done. Zimbabwe's political environment is very different from South Africa's. In South Africa, despite its challenges, protests are allowed under the constitution, and groups like Dudula can operate within the framework of free speech, even if their methods spark controversy. In Zimbabwe, however, protests are often met with heavy police action, arrests, and sometimes violence. The ruling Zanu-PF has been in power for decades, and opposition movements have struggled to make real headway because of state control over institutions and strong security responses. Public reaction to Dabula's call has been mixed. Some Zimbabweans on social media said they appreciate the encouragement and agreed that they need to take a more active stance against Zanu-PF. Others, however, dismissed the suggestion, saying that adopting a movement like Dudula could cause more harm than good, especially since Dudula is associated with hostility towards foreigners. They fear that trying to replicate it in Zimbabwe could lead to more violence and division, instead of unity and progress. Political analysts are also weighing in, pointing out that while the idea of cross-border solidarity is interesting, the realities of Zimbabwe's political system make it difficult to simply copy and paste another country's movement. Analysts say that for change to happen in Zimbabwe, it would require not just grassroots activism but also strong organization, unity among opposition groups, and the support of regional and international partners. Without those, any attempt to adopt something like Dudula could easily be crushed by the state. For South Africans, Dabula's statement is also sparking debate. Some people are asking whether it is appropriate for him to encourage citizens of another country to follow in the footsteps of such a controversial movement. Others say his comments highlight a sense of frustration that many South Africans feel about the struggles in neighboring countries, because when things go wrong in places like Zimbabwe, South Africa often ends up absorbing the consequences through migration and refugee movements. In that sense, some argue that it is natural for South Africans to want their neighbors to fight for better governance at home. At the same time, there are warnings that such rhetoric can be dangerous. Critics say that using Dudula as a model risks exporting xenophobic ideas into a country that already faces its own political and social divisions. They argue that what Zimbabwe needs is a unifying movement that focuses on rebuilding institutions, fighting corruption, and strengthening democracy, not one that mirrors the anger and hostility sometimes associated with Dudula in South Africa. What is also interesting is how this shows the interconnectedness of Southern African politics. For decades, movements and leaders across the region have influenced each other, whether during the liberation struggles or in more recent political campaigns. Dabula's comments remind us that the borders may be drawn on maps, but the struggles of people in this region are closely linked. Economic collapse in one country spills over into another. Political instability in Zimbabwe, for instance, has led to large numbers of people moving into South Africa, which in turn has sparked tensions and shaped movements like Dudula. This is why Dabula's call, whether people agree with it or not, has struck a nerve. It speaks to the reality that what happens in one country cannot be ignored by its neighbors. South Africans are watching Zimbabwe, and Zimbabweans are watching South Africa. When one nation struggles, the ripple effects are felt across the region. For ordinary Zimbabweans, the real question is whether they believe they have the power to push back against decades of political dominance by Zanu-PF. History has shown that the ruling party has survived many waves of opposition and protests, often responding with strong force. But at the same time, history has also shown that no government is completely immune to pressure, especially when it comes from the people themselves. Whether Dabula's words will inspire new energy or simply fade into the noise of politics remains to be seen. On the streets of Harare and Bulawayo, opinions are divided. Some young Zimbabweans are saying it is time for them to stop waiting for change and start creating it. They believe movements that challenge the status quo are necessary, even if they come with risks. Older citizens, however, tend to be more cautious, saying they have seen how harsh the government's response can be, and they are not sure if it is worth the danger. For South Africans, watching from across the border, the discussion has a different flavor. Some see Dabula's comments as proof that Dudula is growing in influence, even beyond South Africa's borders. Others see it as a reminder of how deeply troubled the region is, and how solutions are not simple. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more updates like this. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news in a way that is clear, real, and easy to understand. Always remember to watch till the end so you can hear the sources and verify the news for yourself. All images used in this video are for illustration purposes only. Sources: News 24, SABC News, The Herald Zimbabwe,